This podcast is brought to you by our Patreon supporters. If you'd like to help expand our programming, head to patreon.com/Talk Star Wars and become a TSW patron. You'll receive exclusive podcasts, access to a VIP Facebook group, monthly prize draws, Facebook Live sessions, and much, much more. Head to patreon.com/Talk Star Wars and become a TSW patron today, and the Force will be with you always. This is Talk Star Wars, the official podcast of talkstarwars.co.uk. Hello everybody, welcome back to Talk Star Wars. I'm Mark.
I'm Rob.
And I'm Paul.
And there's no Stephen this week because the poor little sausage is feeling a little bit poorly.
Oh, bless his little cotton.
Isn't this a trend?
Oh.
He's got a poorly little sausage.
Ponce.
But hashtag Ponce. To make up for Stephen's absence, we've got some great news, some very exciting news. So, yeah, we do. Huge congratulations are in order for
Thank you very much.
the pending nuptials of one Mr. Rob Wade and the wonderful Jen. Congratulations, mate.
Thank you.
How did you trick her?
Crowd goes wild.
Does she listen to the podcast, Jen? If you're being forced to do anything against your will, just blink twice and we'll come and help you.
It'll be like an epileptic.
Congratulations, mate. How exciting.
Yes, well, thank you. It's a very exciting time, obviously. It's, considering how it could have gone, it went very well. So, and I got the answer I wanted, which is the main thing.
Wonderful. Yeah. And
so I'm moving out.
An enthusiastic yes from the look on Jen's face with the pointing to the ring.
She was pretty content, I would say. We can maybe talk about it in the After Dark side in terms of a bit more detail about it, but suffice to say, I'm relatively confident she was happy.
I think if she hears that cast, mate, you might get the ring back.
Yeah. But if I cut together a hot reel of all your best moments, she might start to reconsider the decision she just made.
She's heard my other podcast. I think if she's still around at this point, I've got it. She's mine forever.
Yeah. Oh, it's great news. Congratulations. Yes, hopefully we can go through some of the details on your proposal in the After Dark side then. That'll be cool. Well done, mate. Really, really great news.
Thank you very much.
Have you chosen the best man yet?
No, I'm thinking my sister.
Wow, that'll make a change.
Yeah, that's cool. Huh?
Well, she's also like, I won't say actually. I was going to give a descriptor of what she's like, but it's an After Dark side descriptor. So,
yeah, perhaps we'll leave that detail for that as well, so I don't have to break out the beeps.
Yeah,
good stuff. Oh, that's awesome. Right. Oh, yeah. Thank you. Okay.
See what I mean?
The description came through. You made a wise choice not airing that one.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. Let's get into some thank yous. And if you want to find out more details about Rob's nuptials and proposal,
pectorals,
you can
pick up the After
Dark
Dark
side
side
this
this month.
To say you can follow me on Instagram at Rob Wade Vision, but I didn't post it. Jen did.
Yeah, it's in the VIP group, so perhaps people need to become patrons.
There you go. Yeah, become a patron, and you can see the picture.
Yeah. Where can they do that, Rob?
You can do that at patreon.com/Talk Star Wars.
There you go. Well done.
Yeah.
The people that did do that this week have a big thank you coming their way. So thank you to Francis Robinson, Paul Bolan, and Ian Jolliffe. Ian, of course, has been a long-time supporter of the show. Very active, sort of writing in questions and active on Twitter. They all became patrons, so thank you so much. And thank you to Paul Bolan a second time for upgrading his pledge almost immediately. Just a couple of days after being in the VIP group, he upped his pledge. So thank you very much, Paul. It's extremely generous of you. And you fine gentlemen, of course, both of you are also patrons. Thank you for your generous givings every month. YouTube also has been continuing to grow. It's becoming quite a vibrant place over there for interactions. So just wanted to say thank you to Pokemon Giveaways Monthly, JR's Toy TV.
Seriously? Awesome.
Seriously. JR's Toy TV. JR's Toy TV is Carlos Candido's son. Gorgeous.
All right.
Gorgeous little boy. It's
he's
his
a lovely kid.
toy channel, unboxings, Lego builds, and things like that. And
Carlos is no slouch himself. He's a dish, that man.
he is. He's a lovely man.
Oh, so
and
beard.
Cashel Gladio also subscribed to our YouTube channel this week. And there is a bunch of other subscribers whose details I can't see, obviously, because you don't make your subscriptions public on the channel. So that's okay. I understand that. So thank you. Just to let you know, we have noticed. Right, this is usually where we segue into the review section. We haven't been getting many reviews recently, so it's a prime real estate now for dropping something special. We will read whatever you write. We call it the Ron Burgundy policy. So if you're looking to promote something, or indeed propose to somebody, for example, Rob.
I did say last week, if you told me that before, it might have all been different.
I've only been reading it out for 89 episodes at that point, but
you would have known. You've never said proposal once.
No, I have.
Time.
I'd
be very surprised.
I have said it before. I said it right at the start. It was. It became things because the discussion group that we're a part of. The most common things that people are going to want to be promoting are podcasts and blogs. But at the start, it was like birthdays, proposals. That's the kind of thing that I wanted to start seeing.
Gotcha.
But I know with our release schedule, it's difficult for people to sync up and hit an actual proposal. Event. Yeah.
Well, there's that too. Yeah. I mean, there's obviously, if for whatever reason it hadn't gone ahead and I'd given you the kind of, carte blanche to reveal it, then that could have been disastrous.
It could have been really bad, couldn't it? You could have rocked up at the front door with a little bindle stick and a little red and white hanky full of your belongings.
You know us so well.
Can I live here? So if you wanted to leave us a 5-star review in iTunes, we will read it, and then you can put anything you want in there. As long as it gets past iTunes censorship, we'll read it. Find a way to be creative. Okay, listener comms. I'm going to give one of you guys the wheel now because I've been talking for too long. Listener comms, if you want to send in questions and comments, observations, insights, whatever, you can do so by sending them to us via Twitter or Facebook, or you can email us, or if you attach an MP3, a voicemail, to talkstarwarsinfo@gmail.com. It's talkstarwarsinfo@gmail.com. Like Nathan did a couple of weeks ago. This is Nathan's...
Hey. Rob, this is all yours, mate.
I've had a hell of a lot of email stockpiled recently. So I've been trying to pair out things when we cross the streams, and there's a lot on the same topics. I'm trying to spread it out so it's not all the same thing we're talking about. This is Nathan's email from a couple of weeks ago. It's Obi-Wan Kenobi shaped. Rob, take it away.
Right, I would be glad to. So Nathan writes, "Hey gents, you guys discussed the Kenobi movie, and of course the subject of him leaving or staying on Tatooine was tossed about. Oh my. It's an issue that's been hotly debated in the fandom over the past month. Personally, I'm of the mind that the story can be crafted to allow him to leave. I wrote into Tumbling Saber explaining my reasons a few weeks ago. However, if they do keep him on Tatooine, which I believe is a preference shared by all of you, I don't think it's as problematic as many would initially believe. There are ways to set a movie in a single environment for its entire duration while still giving it diverse looks and feels within it. An example of this is Mad Max Fury Road. The entirety of that movie is set in a single biome, as the Naked One puts it. Steve, however, through different elements, weather, time of day, indoor scenes, etc., it was able to make the environment look and feel different throughout the movie without making the audience bored of it. The scene in the storm masks the environment completely. The twilight scenes are eerie. Even the salt flats and the dunes each have very unique feels. All that is to say that when it comes down to it, spending 2 hours in a single environment isn't as long as it might seem, particularly to Star Wars fans. For me, the main worry of keeping him on Tatooine is the actual story. I remain unconvinced. Anyway, have a great show, boys. Nathan 1 Kenobi." So I haven't seen Fury Road, unfortunately. So, but as a general rule, as a general comment, I would say that sounds perfectly reasonable.
Yeah, it's on the money.
It
I think he's absolutely right.
More than feasible, actually.
Yeah.
And actually, I've got to tip my hat because it's not an example I would have thought of.
Yeah, well, it's good. Good example.
And the thing is, I mean, by going by that example, the minute they do anything like that, we're just going to go, oh, it's just Mad Max.
Yeah, that's the other side of that coin, isn't it? Yeah. But it does. It's a wonderful example from Nathan there of just how versatile that filmmaking technique can be.
At a background example, which is completely valid to what the question was raised over the last few weeks. So
yeah.
I really don't know which direction to go with it.
It's good.
Paul's melted,
To be
everyone.
completely honest, I am. Yeah.
Nathan's broken his brain.
Yeah.
That's good. I mean, it's I'm starting to feel a little more relaxed about the idea of Obi-Wan going off-world because of some of the flexibility we're starting to see in canon storytelling now. I think there might be wiggle room in there to sort of get him off for a little bit. Oh my! But I love this example of just using production design to make that one environment that we fell in love with in A New Hope seem like many.
Yeah.
And if you listen to I listened to the Kenobi audio, but of course it's valid if you just want to read it like some old-fashioned person. They do tell a lot of stories about the Tusken Raiders and all this sort of stuff, and it does feel very different. It feels almost Western. So I do think a combination of this design of the locations and lighting and environments like the biomes that Nathan referenced, combined with some really extraordinary characters.
Compelling.
It could be really compelling, especially if you paint the Obi-Wan character in the way Clint Eastwood was in Unforgiven. You've got that guy that just doesn't want to get pulled out of hiding and back into action.
Yeah.
That would be an interesting lens to view that character through. Not necessarily quite where we met him in Twin Sons with Darth Maul, but somewhere before that. It could be great. I hope they do it.
My issue with the whole idea, though, is it's always the way I've actually. Part of it is the way I've seen Ben portrayed. I mean, for me, Alec Guinness gave us this beautiful, wise, understanding, obviously very caring, but prepared to move the distance and try and pull Luke along with him, sort of thing. And Ewan McGregor's character was a bit obviously young, fresh, bit more kick-ass, but with a bit of pomp. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the only time I actually found him gritty was when he did the business on Darth Maul. Other than that, I always thought he was too proper. And even Alec Guinness didn't give us that. I mean, obviously talking, an enormous gap in the storytelling. But Alex didn't give us that proper thing. He was still kind of earthy and gritty and so on and so forth. And that's why, for me, he molded into Tatooine perfectly. And I made it very, very clear so many times that Tatooine's one of my favorite absolute elements of the entire Star Wars universe, period. I love the Tusken Raiders. I like Mos Eisley. I love the Jawas and so on and so forth. So from that perspective, keep him there and give us that story. I mean, using the Tusken Raiders back in when, Anakin catches up with Mum again, unfortunately too late and so on and so forth, there wasn't enough for me because I could quite happily go with the whole Dances with Wolves situation just with Tusken Raiders and so on and so forth. So I like the tribal element, I think, and that whole nomadic feel. And we could serve him into a story along those lines, sort of thing. But it depends what they do with Ben. It really depends what they do with Ben. That's the thing.
Yeah, it's that what you've just described about the tribal side of things and the Tuskens is all very much in that book, the Kenobi novelization. It's really interesting. They do wander a little bit too close sometimes to like the budding romance and all that sort of stuff. It's a bit Dances with Wolves. I'm not necessarily into that from my Jedi Knights, but it is very interesting to see Obi-Wan in a different environment. I'd be very keen to see him sort of exploring the Force, see that element of him exploring the Force, but in this Western-like setting. So, but over the past couple of weeks, we've had people write in and talk to us about Obi-Wan's intentions. We had an email a couple of weeks ago, didn't we, where I forget who it was, forgive me, but somebody said Obi-Wan looked set to go anyway when Leia turned up and Luke said, I can't go. And he said, fair enough, I'm going,
I'm still going, yeah.
So that's why we do this thing, and that's why we engage with other Star Wars fans, because we need to expand our understanding of this story. And it made me stop and think, I think he was about to go. So there's been a lot of talk recently about Millie Bobby Brown playing a young Leia. If you could get a young Leia and a young Bail involved in something that might tempt Obi-Wan out, you could start telling those kinds of stories, couldn't you? Like, little tangents that they take before we join them a little bit. Sometimes it's a bit of a cheat, but you could see these characters used in a way that might motivate Obi-Wan. If we heard in a certain point of view book that Yoda would desperately want to train Leia over Luke. Maybe that's something that looked like it was a goer before Obi-Wan settled back down on Tatooine and waited for Luke. It could have been, I've got to go, she's ready. Who knows? I'm sure they'll find a way of doing it.
I don't see it personally. I'm still more of the feeling that it should be Tatooine based. But I think Nathan's absolutely right that they can still make Tatooine varied using various, filmmaking tricks, and you can do it using different types of locale and all that sort of stuff. So I'm
a battle, a storm.
Yeah, exactly.
Mos Eisley.
I think that's absolutely right.
We could happily revisit Mos Eisley for probably 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Go back to the bar.
I'm sure people would be very happy with that stuff if it's done, as long as it's done well. It doesn't really, the fans are pretty forgiving when it comes to stuff being done well.
You've got to revisit it in the correct manner. No, I know what you mean.
Yeah, exactly. Obviously, there are some that are never going to be happy, but then, you might as well just shut it all down if you're going to try and please them.
You could have the Sandcrawler, a big monster trucks ceremony.
A big, big monster truck rally with the Sandcrawler.
You're jumping land speeders and stuff like that.
We hooked our Sandcrawler up to the tractor appeal.
You got two great antagonists already in that environment. You've got the Hutts and their criminal underworld, and you've got the Tusken Raiders and the Wilds, the Jundland Waste and things like that.
That's all you need. That's all you need.
That's plenty to tell stories.
Anybody who's saying that you want Vader and you want no, give it a rest. Not a chance.
They do need to start moving away from that stuff, I think.
For sure.
The sooner the better. Let these films sort of stand on their own now.
Yeah, indeed.
So the argument is for that. I mean, if you are using Ben, then you can quite happily be using Vader too. They were together for such a long period of time.
But
they were yin yang of each other for a while.
Yeah, true. I mean, the only thing is, it starts to tread over the Lucas established canon, which is a no for me. When it starts to, the last time I felt this presence was in the presence of my old master. When was that? Oh, last summer.
Yeah.
It starts getting a bit. That sort of suspension of disbelief starts getting a bit silly, and you can only exploit that for so long before people just start outright rejecting it.
Yeah, Dave was in the Facebook Live session before we started recording. Dave Donovan was saying he'd just finished a certain point of view and he had many problems with it.
Yeah, he mentioned that to me. Similarly, but yeah, I think I'm not surprised. And the only comfort I can say, Dave, to take from it is that it's not hard canon, all of it.
Yeah.
It's kind of all a bit, what's the word? It's a bit of a mishmash of hard canon and soft canon.
So is there like hard canon and semi-canon?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, I was talking about it in the Facebook Live. There is a book coming out where the characters tell each other stories about Luke. There's kind of legends of Luke Skywalker.
Mm-hmm.
And so the storytellers then get to do whatever they want without a risk of trampling all over hard canon.
Mm-hmm.
That's clever.
Sure.
And if I don't know much about a certain point of view yet, but if the story mechanic can frame these short stories in such a way as they are retellings, perhaps, then it would work. But you need to be able to shift gears between that storytelling mechanism and the ones they want you to take seriously and the ones that will have an impact on canon long term. But Nathan, great question. Thank you very much. Mate. Sorry it's taken us a couple of weeks to get to it, but fantastic work. Thought-provoking indeed. Okay, we got this from the aforementioned Dave Donovan, who says, early drafts of the original story and script had Vader sensing Obi-Wan at the start of the film above Tatooine as he sent squads down to find the droids. It was changed for obvious reasons. The audience wouldn't know what was going on and what he is feeling or exactly who Obi-Wan was. So no context for those bits of storytelling. We hadn't met Luke yet in that point in the film. But in review, would this not be an awesome change to the film? Vader feeling Obi-Wan's presence because he's so near. As to the last question, I do definitely think this was a second email that Dave sent to follow this one up. I've just added it in. That's why it doesn't quite make sense. I do definitely think it would work better to have Vader sense Obi-Wan whilst he's in orbit above Tatooine. Kick it around, lads. Can't wait to hear your thoughts. So would it have been cool to have had Vader sense Obi-Wan when he's over Tatooine? And the fact that that didn't happen, does it weaken Vader or indeed the Force in any way?
No. I think that's a bit of that's one of those changes that would satisfy the hardcore fans and alienate new viewers.
Yeah,
because it adds nothing to a new viewer's experience, and it's there as a kind of nudge, wink, wink, nod to the people who've seen it hundreds of times, and that's not who you're going for with a film. You want the person you want to make a fan out of the person who's never seen it before. So I wouldn't say it's a worthy addition,
a worthy change. No.
Yeah, I feel like that would be done. That would be a hardcore fan pleaser, and it's not. It wouldn't add anything for me.
It would change a lot, considering the reveal on the Death Star is that Obi-Wan's there, and that's what Anakin feels, or that's what Vader feels at that point in time. He's here, like Obi-Wan's here, and that starts to drive him. That starts to motivate him. That would have awoken that element in Vader's character much earlier if that revelation that Obi-Wan was still alive, and he was nearby.
Andy's nearby.
It would have changed an awful lot.
He gets everywhere, mate.
He does, doesn't he? What do you think of this, Paul?
Well, Rob's looking at it very much from a fan's perspective. I mean, even from a story perspective, which I get, don't get me wrong. I'm looking at it purely from a story perspective. I mean, if you were able to feel someone's presence while you're in orbit above a planet, where do you stop with that kind of situation? So I mean, one of the cool things about first time we ever saw Star Wars, and it was called Star Wars, was the idea that this sort of almost this ghostly aura was around Vader, and he could pick up what was going on around the corner because Ben was there. The idea that you could just sort of fly over, he's below us. Pull over. No, I can't, unfortunately buy that ideal. You need, 'cause it takes away, that scene was where the chase started, wasn't it? I mean, that was, the first part of our little bit of French connection that appeared in Star Wars, where you're like, aha, he knows he's there now. So one will be pursuing the other while one pursues the other, and so on and so forth. So that was a good sort of haunting, romantic element that started in the film. And the idea that you could just do it, orbiting a planet, it takes that element of romance and locality away from the situation, really. And they needed to be a little bit on top of each other. It's really cool when one's just around the corner, and then when you go around the corner, he's just going around the other corner. So just out of sight is a lot more interesting.
Yeah, I agree. Once you dial up the Jedi ability to an off-world sensing,
it's not like you're looking for your iPhone. You know what I mean? With the tracker, it's like there's got to be a sense of
There needs to be some sort of limitation, doesn't there?
Yeah.
Because then it's much.
I'm not saying like 20 meters. I don't want to put it down to literal figures, but you've got to be in a locale of some kind.
But the fact that when Vader's outside the Millennium Falcon, and essentially because they're inside those smuggling compartments, they could be on the same plane, couldn't they? They could be like within meters of each other at the same level, and Vader's feeling Obi-Wan and he knows, this is absolutely that presence I haven't felt for 2 decades. And then Obi-Wan, you see that register on his face when he's walking around the corridors of the Death Star, and he pulls the lightsaber out. He knows that Vader's onto him. He knows it's happening. So the limitations makes those moments much more dramatic. And Dave's perfectly right in what he's saying, that it wouldn't have worked straight out the gate in 77, because without any context, those sort of mythic abilities are lost on the audience.
Yeah.
Now, fair enough. At the moments where they are dropped into the story in Star Wars, the first time you watch it, you're probably just as lost. Still a new element the first time you see it, when Vader says, "I feel a presence I've not felt since." But there's nothing else going on at that moment. Right at the top of the movie, you've got The prince has just been captured. The droids they've done a runner with the plans. You got Obi-Wan trying to recruit Luke into service. There's a lot going on. There's no space to sort of introduce this new element of mythology, this new element of Star Wars lore. But as the film slows down and everyone's hiding on the Falcon, that's the perfect moment to just sort of say, oh yeah, this guy's really powerful. This is in his bag of tricks as well. When there's nothing else going on in the story around it. On
the other side of the coin, to a degree, or the edge of the coin, should I say, we do also have the moment in Jedi where Luke, at some distance, they're sitting on the shuttle. He's like, Vader's on that ship.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. So, and we accepted that gladly as well. And to be honest, I think that probably gave us a little enjoyable punch that we hadn't experienced. So,
but they're slowly.
It can happen. But yeah, they're moving closer and closer towards it, so on and so forth. But again,
and they're dialing it up as well, aren't they? Over 3 films,
it's still got a fair. Yeah, true. I mean, we're getting to the final of Act 3 at that point, aren't we? So Act 3 of Act 3. So yeah.
Yeah, and everyone's getting a little bit more powerful, so that they're on a ship.
Yeah, Luke certainly was.
They're quite close to each other still in terms of those ships not being all that far apart, but it's just we understand the concept now. And they're dialing it up, sort of showing you just how powerful Luke is becoming, and then the others kind of sort of brush it off as no, you're just edgy, and so we're not quite sure if he's feeling it or if he has been a little bit anxious, perhaps. But yeah, it does work because we've had 2 films where we've been schooled in the abilities of these guys, and they've slowly dialed it up to 11 by the time we get to the end of Return of the Jedi. So even though I like this, and I added that little piece in the breakdown, does it weaken Vader that he doesn't do it? No, because I do think that the abilities they have, they need to have limitations. Otherwise, they're Supermen flying around.
Yeah, just superheroes.
Yeah. And the moments in Star Wars where they've done that, where they've dialed the Jedi ability up too far, it does lead to some weak areas in the storytelling. Yeah, Phantom Menace is a go-to example for this point for me. We've got when the droid cars turn up, when Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan are trying.
I know what you're about to say.
Yeah, they do the force dash, don't they? Run off really quickly. Yeah. Using that at the start of the film, when it comes to Obi-Wan navigating his way through those electronic gates, those sort of plasma gates, that's separating him from Qui-Gon and Maul. If he'd done a force dash. Problem solved.
Yeah.
But it didn't. It's wearing a plot shield, that ability, isn't it? It's like, well, they can do it when it serves the plot, and when it doesn't service the plot, we'll abandon it, conveniently forget it.
Well, like the ability to, with one hand, push 200 power, war droids away. Like, why don't you just do it all day?
Yeah.
Yeah, quite so.
Why don't you just spin on the spot? You could be like this whirlwind.
Yeah, you have to be careful how powerful you make these characters, don't you?
Yeah.
Because when they are doing all this stuff, when you see one like Anakin, when you really should be seeing somebody who does have extraordinary abilities, it will lessen them somewhat if you've seen those abilities used elsewhere by Joe Jedi, just your regular old beige Jedi wandering around.
I feel bad because I don't want to poop on Dave's parade.
Not at all.
It's just I just don't see how it adds anything.
I like the angle, but it's not something I'd like to see, is all I'm saying. But I mean, it throws an interesting perspective. It's not something you want actually to apply to the films, but it's like, wow, how could you take this?
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of those moments that I imagine working really well in a novel or in a comic book where you can have these two. If that was all that moment was about in the story, where you have these two characters sort of connect with each other, and it's through the medium of one of these abilities, like they sense each other's presence. That's a wonderful moment of connection. And so I do, from that perspective, I think Dave's bang on the money. That's a great dramatic tool to use, but dropping it into that end of A New Hope, there's too many other plot points active at that moment in time to introduce a new element of Star Wars lore. It will get muddy and confusing, and it would start to alienate the audience. But what George did was he got some basic narrative stuff done. Then he introduced us to a little bit of lore. Then some basic narrative stuff done. and then he introduced us to a little bit of the legend of this world that he was creating. So
Yeah.
he's a master storyteller, George. I know we take the mickey out of him for some of the ball dropping he did with some of the things in the prequels, but for the most part, what that guy did was fantastic. He really understood how to tell a story and how to tease these things out in a way that made sense.
Yeah.
I mean, we were still kind of adjusting to who Vader was. The first time I saw Star Wars, don't try and frighten us with your sorcerer's ways. It's like, what's going on? What's going on here?
Yeah.
Sort of thing. I mean, granted, I was 9 or 8 or 7 even. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden, the whole political circle appeared. You're like, when you're that young, you're like, no, give me the X-wings, give me the space battles, and then all of a sudden they throw the word sorcery, and you're like, oh, hang on a minute, what's going on here? So the idea that he could have immediately gone, oh, by the way, Ben, he's down there.
See, and
it would have been a real crowbar.
That's another great example as well, Paul. That moment around that table, you've got some exposition in there with the dialogue, like the Emperor, the dissolution of the Senate and all that sort of stuff. And then George chooses in that moment to say, oh, and this is another one of this guy's abilities, the Force choke.
Yeah.
And so it makes they're all bad guys, but then you've got a bad guy within that group of bad guys. And so you know who to be scared of. It's not just the man in black, but he's the man in black that the men in black are scared of. Yeah, really.
Whose side's he on?
You're doubling down on your baddies. It's brilliant. It's baddie squared. That's excellent. Dave, thank you so much.
Yes, always, they lost, really.
We can always count on Dave for some insightful stuff.
Yes, indeed.
All right. James Weibel is next. I've got quite a few of James's emails stored up to drop into coming episodes. Paul, would you like to take James's email this week?
Oh,
or have you lost your show notes again?
No, I'm very organised.
That's why there was the elongated. Go on. Then.
No, not at all. Not at all. Right. Opens bracket, boots up. All right, from James. I think the reason for Jar Jar hate is the opposite of Boba love. Where Boba is super competent, Jar Jar is entirely incompetent. People would love to see a competent character push through adversity and succeed. But when people don't earn success, it does cheapen their achievement. It's actually quite true. Not only did Jar Jar fail into success, he destroyed the competency of other characters. He would eliminate all their hard work and replace it with an accident. Jar Jar became that supervisor or manager that you hate, who is a fool and fails upwards, making it basically mystical that they ever succeeded. I left out the sex connotation there. The sex of the species, which in turn cheapened the Force itself. I personally think that if Jar Jar didn't succeed, he would have been dismissed fairly quickly. James, so is Jar Jar unpopular because he fails into success? That almost sounds like an opposite double negative sort of situation, doesn't it?
Yeah, but you do have people that fail up, don't you, into these
big time, and I am. I do.
I am one of them. Yeah, I know from whence I speak.
No, I surpass them. Don't worry about that. I fail into failure.
Those people who fail into success can eat my dust.
It's got a point.
It's got a really good point.
Because you do get a little tired of the clumsiness and the accidental, the wrong things said, and they're tripping over and all those kind of bits and pieces. But the only thing is, did we get tired of it because it was childish? That was the other thing. I mean, I found him to be a character that I think it's almost like George was trying to bring the young audience back in to the cutie pie thing. And obviously, when it was Phantom Menace came along, most of us had been waiting 25 years for a kick-ass Star Wars film. So when this came along, we were like, what's that? sort of thing. But at the same time, was he just trying to draw the young audience in to marry with the old? And it just backfired on him.
Yeah, I think there's something to that, Paul. Honestly, I think that George was a very different filmmaker at this point in his career. Very different. He was a young man, barely 30, I think, in 77 when he made A New Hope. And then we come back in the 90s and there's a man much older with children, he's built a huge successful corporation around himself. So his sensibilities are going to be different. And I know that we'll probably discuss this point a little bit more, but I know that he thought of Jar Jar as being very similar a character archetype as 3PO. And he felt that, in the 70s with Star Wars, children loved 3PO. So children are going to love Jar Jar. It's the same character.
Yeah, the audience is more mature now.
It isn't the same character. They're not the same character archetypes at all. And I think James is really astute in his saying, Jar Jar, it does somewhat cheapen the success and the sacrifices of the other characters in the story when this guy just bumbles into things and suddenly it works. You trip over something and
becomes a general.
You unplug the entire droid army. That 3PO didn't do that stuff, did he? 3PO didn't fail up. 3PO was a bag of nerves.
3PO was a coward. He backed off. It was R2 that ran into battle. R2 is probably the bravest character in the entire universe ever.
He is. He's probably the biggest hero out of the whole lot.
But the good thing was, though, 3PO was they were Laurel and Hardy, and he was the Hardy of it, but he was a pompous butler version of it, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So he was constantly belittling the cool, brave one, whilst actually backing off and being a pompous coward at the same time.
Yeah, you got to love him though. I've always liked the 3PO character, but I don't think that where George sees 3PO and Jar Jar as being the same thing. I tend not to agree.
No, they're not.
Rob,
they're not.
What's your position
3PO
on?
3PO wasn't foolish. 3PO was almost calculated.
Yeah, but 3PO wasn't. He wasn't a fool. He was extremely capable. And I think if you look at moments like in the detention block where the stormtroopers come in, he managed to talk their way out of that situation. He is a bag of nerves, and he is, quick, lock the door, and don't go in there, and don't do this and don't do that. But he never just ran away and left his friends. And none of the successes in any of the Star Wars movies are a result of something that 3PO does wrong, are they? Can you think of an example? I don't think there is one of 3PO doing something wrong and it ending up well.
No, he got blasted on Bespin. That wasn't his fault. He thought he heard R2.
Yeah, but he didn't succeed. That moment when he went in and the stormtroopers blew him apart on Bespin, he didn't succeed because he wasn't successful in warning anybody before they were already in the trap.
No.
That's a trap. Sorry, Rob. What's your take on this, mate?
I think what you guys have said is pretty broadly accurate. I do think as well, though, that there's a little bit of it's a character for children, and a lot of people still can't get their head around the fact that the movies are made primarily for younger audiences.
Mm-hmm.
George said that.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's part. I think that's part of it. I think some people are just still clinging on to the idea that Star Wars is made just with them in mind. It's just for me. It's just for people like me. It's the same, although it's to a lesser degree. It's the same kind of mentality. That's why we get a lot of questions about, should we get Rebels characters in the films? And it's like, well, not really, because just because we watch Rebels doesn't mean that the broad cinema going audience does. It's an extension of that mentality, sort of taking it to its extreme conclusion almost. So I think that, but I do, like I say, I do agree with what you guys have said in terms of it is partly down to the fact that I think James is absolutely astute. It's partly down to the fact that he fails upwards. There's there is a limit, I think, past which it would be funny. There's a point past which it stops being funny. I think there's a point where had he stopped slightly earlier, in terms of how many times it happened in the films, maybe people would look at it a little less. I have an example.
We all know that in Return of the Jedi, George's initial vision was it was the Vietnam analog. So the Empire were going to be the American sort of the military industrial complex, and then the Viet Cong were going to be represented in Lucas's movies in the form of Wookiees, and they were going to be the primitives that would overthrow this huge mechanized war machine, just with slings and arrows and bows and traps. And they would do it because they were spirited, fighting for what was theirs, and not because they were this thing. There's no secret that George has said quite openly that he decided to back away from the idea of Wookiees because he'd made Chewbacca too sophisticated. This guy's an engineer. He flies the ship. He's this loyal friend. He's no longer the primitive character, so he created the Ewoks. Now, think back to the first time you saw the Phantom Menace trailer, the very first Phantom Menace trailer. You get these really cool characters coming out of the smoke and the fog in that swampland on the back of their... I'm not sure what they're called. They're the Gungans, and they had those steeds, didn't they? Those two-legged steeds. So they come out of the... And they look like those primitives, that in air quotes, that George was looking for in the original films. So to me, way back then, with the way that was expertly edited, so you get that sort of, if I remember right, there's this rhythmic sort of drum beat underneath it. The camera fades up from black. You see these characters sort of swagger out of the swamp.
Might even be
on their steeds,
almost like a bird screaming in the background kind of situation.
It's really, it's just saying that these are the primitives that he had in mind way back when. So what should have happened, in my estimation, and what would have got us out of the situation that James has just described for us, is if that primitive race had come out of that swamp like that, and Jar Jar, remember, is this buffoon at this point, if Jar Jar had managed to dig down deep and summon the sort of, like, marshal the sort of spirit that those other Gungans had when they come out of that swampland on the back of their two-legged steeds, he would have won our respect. If he could have said, I'm going to stand now next to Captain Tarples, was it? The leader? Tarples, Captain Tarples. If he could have said, I'm going to stand next to this guy, I'm going to learn from him, I'm going to stand my ground, and I'm going to be brave, that character would have won me over. But what they had instead was him dropping those bombs, and it was all Keystone Cop style slapstick.
He had a gun strapped to his foot, and he's kicking it around.
He had a moment there, George, to tell the story he wanted to tell about this primitive race who used their honor and their spirit and their gumption to sort of dig in and say, no, we're not gonna let this overwhelming force defeat us. We're going to beat them because we're brave.
Yeah.
But instead, they beat them because Jar Jar's a buffoon and he opened up a thing and a bunch of bombs come rolling out.
Yeah.
Sure, for children that's funny, but he had a moment there to dig down deep and save Jar Jar from becoming the caricature and making him this brave hero. Not the best hero, but to show that he could stand side by side with the heroes from his people and defeat this invading army.
Yeah.
There was a chance, I think, you could have saved Jar Jar then.
Yeah.
And he would have been a character I could have had some respect for. And I still enjoy some of what Jar Jar does. And I think they were wise in the later films to dial him back a little bit. But I still enjoy some of what he does. But they had an option and they missed it. Yeah. And it would have been a great moment to have just turned that around and said, no, that this guy's gone back to his people. He's been banished. He's gone back to his people, stood alongside them. And then ultimately went on to victory. But it could have just as easily gone the other way. But he would have stood by them till the end. And that result, that saves that character then. That would have been quite something to see.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I think George traded away that whole primitives storyline that he'd had in mind for all those years. He traded it away for the cheap laughs in that slapstick montage. But there you go.
Still don't know why he couldn't use the Wookiees just because of Chewbacca. You know, amongst every species, 2 or 3 stand up.
Yeah.
And he could have still been a primitive. He just spent so long with Han. You learn.
Yeah.
Domesticated.
So, yeah.
Housebroken. Sleep curled up on the end of his bed.
That's it, mate. Yeah.
Did you say lead?
What a lead.
I think that's a bandolier.
He's got a bowl in the corner of the Falcon to eat.
Han wraps him on the nose with a rolled up newspaper when he licks his butt.
Must remember that.
I wonder how he pees.
Standing up. James, thank you so much for that question. What a wonderful thought exercise to see how they could have saved Jar Jar. But yeah, I think he has been consigned to this role of failing up into success, which is so unfortunate.
Can I express, actually, he's worded this question statement impeccably as well. It's seriously hits every
Yeah,
nail
it
on
really
the head.
is good.
Well, James,
Really is awesome.
it
Yeah.
must be said, James is a writer. So,
Okay.
and yeah, everything he's sent has been really well thought out, and his positions are impeccable. Yeah.
I just find it a shame and rude that when Marc puts these into the show notes, he completely destroys them with cheap auto text failures and stuff like that. So anyway,
yeah, and I need to point out that I really, really don't care. It's up to you to be on your game and work it out.
apparently so.
Rob, is it your turn? Do you want to take Adam's question?
Sure. Yeah. So this is from Adam Sheldon.
Oh, I'm lost. Hang on. Well, go. Sorry.
It's the one underneath the one that was just read.
My touchpad just went completely crazy with me.
So from Adam Sheldon, Adam writes, simply, episode 10, 11, 12, or after 9, that's it? All contained in 9 films, the Skywalker story? Maybe 4 to 6 spin-offs? An animated series?
Oh, are you going to go?
So what animated series could be done?
Got yourself some compelling motivation?
Bounty Hunters?
No, American.
A droid story? I'll stop there because that's the point I'm actually becoming completely unintelligible. So a droid story, Sons of Tatooine, Biggs and Friends, or an Inferno Squad series. Your thoughts? And personally, I think Luke might well disappear into the ether of the Force in episode 9, if he survives 8, that is. Love and best wishes to you all, my good Patreon friends. May the Force be with you. Kind regards, Adam. So will we get further saga entries after 9? And if not, what would we get instead?
Each of these is somewhat tantalising.
Right. I think Rogue One, I think they're very happy still with it. I mean, they had the press and everything else of the directors and the extra work, and not the directors because he stayed on board. But, all the extra work and so on and so forth. But that said, Rogue One, I still consider quite a triumph. Depending on what happens with, obviously, Han, the Solo story, and obviously we've been told the Aunt Beru story is going to be done, and obviously the Ben story. Depending what happens with the
source there,
depends what happens with the additional Star Wars stories. If they are successful as standalones, I think that might be the route they take. That said, if we don't get a particularly big result off Solo story, and if The Last Jedi and obviously Part 9 go through the roof, I think we might be looking at another trilogy. So, thing is, I think the trilogy is a fairly tried and tested way of continuing a story, keeping people, I'm going to use the term again, on the lead, pulling them in, pull them along, and so on and so forth. We love continuity because we consider it to be you're part of a family situation. So, we're happy to be pulled along and join it. And, we're all sitting at the same table every night, having the same meal, waiting for the next story to come along. So, if I don't see any reason after 9, if they get the result they want, we're going to be looking at another 3.
Yeah, that seems reasonable.
Absolutely, 10, 11, 12. There's no doubt in my mind.
I've got no problem with it as long as they're great.
It
seems fair.
I think right now Disney have sunk so much money into this franchise to shelve the Skywalker saga after this movie, whether Luke makes it out or not. I just don't imagine that's even on their mind. I can't even imagine that they'd go that way. And when you've got somebody like Daisy Ridley, who everybody fell in love with, I fall in love with her every time I see her. That character is just fantastic. And I want to see that character return in trilogy after trilogy after trilogy. Could be that this film, these 3 movies, we will see later on with a bit of perspective as the torch being passed from the old guard to the new. And with Rey and Finn and Poe, we might see them continue to tell stories and pass the story on to the next generation in a couple of decades. Why not? Make these movies forever. If you want to take chunks of time with why these stars go off and have rewarding and fulfilling careers, then take 5 years off or 10 years off, but come back later on and tell us the story of those characters at a later point in their life, which is what we've just done after all this time. And you're quite right, Paul. The spin-off stories like Rogue One have been so incredibly enjoyable and so beautifully crafted that the possibilities are endless. And if they want to take 5 years away from the saga and explore some of those stories on their own terms, they can do it as long as they're knocking out these great tales, but they need to start being a little bit braver and step further away from the saga and let the movies succeed on their own and tell stories away from what's happened. Having said that, I'd still want to see Rogue 2 with the Ghost crew going after the Death Star 2 plans. But, that being said, they should start to step away from
I'd love to
saga.
see a Bothan film.
Yeah, that's the idea. Yeah, the guys from the TV show with the Bothans getting caught up in Palpatine's trap, because remember, we know that's a trap. So if they can learn that from the inside and try and tell that story out, that would be really great. But yeah, I think keep coming back to these saga movies, always change from one generation to the next, just hand the stories over and I'll be happy.
Yeah. Let me think. What do I think?
Yeah, we don't care. Moving on.
No, I gave it that.
Sorry, darling.
No, that's all right. It's all right.
Actually, you're guest of honor tonight. You can go for it, mate.
Oh, please.
Yeah, you are.
Oh, come on.
Enjoy your freedom.
I think I'd be okay with there not being a further trilogy after this one. I mean, obviously that's subject to not ending on the cliffhanger or not, resolving all the threads that they possibly can. So there's that. I would quite happily like to see them do something further back in time. Mm-hmm. I've made no secret of the fact I'd love to see something Old Republic-y.
Oh, big time.
Yeah. That would be really interesting.
Origins of the Force.
I'd
maybe
love to see the birth of the Force. That'd be so cool.
Yeah, well, I'd say we talked about it before. They've covered it they had a Legend series called Dawn of the Jedi, which was all about the first people to discover the Force. And obviously the Old Republic stuff, the Legend.
What's it called?
Dawn of the Jedi, I think.
I'm going shopping now.
Dawn of the Jedi. It's a franchise.
And the Knights of the Old Republic as well, Rob. That's an incredibly popular franchise within a franchise.
It's got the huge video game behind it, which is awesome. The second video game, which is not as good but still cool. It's got a few books. It's got the Bane trilogy, which is superb. It's got a ton of comics. It's got absolute wealth of connecting materials in the Legends, and there is a huge space to play in there, because even 1,000 generations of Jedi is a long period of time in which to cover. So I think there is absolutely room, and I would love to see them explore that further. Like I say, possibly after this current trilogy ends, or in standalone movies. I'd like to see a Bane trilogy, but then that's just me.
What about telling those sorts of stories on the small screen?
I'm fine with it. As much as I would love to see them in the big cinema thing, I mean, what with television production and budgets the way they are now, you could still tell a really good story using TV. So yeah, I'm fine. I'd be fine with that too.
There's some better quality stuff making its way to TV now. I mean, the new Star Trek show on Netflix is I'm only 2 episodes in. It's fantastic.
Oh, was it good? I haven't had a chance.
I've really enjoyed it. I wasn't expecting much from it, but it's really, really good.
Okay, maybe that's why you've enjoyed it. A lot of people seem to go in with huge expectations and then they end up disappointed. Maybe it's because you've gone in a bit more
measured,
not blind, but with a bit more of a measured approach.
But seeing what they can do, it looks like a feature. It's feature quality production.
Of course, yeah.
The lighting and everything. The special effects and the makeup. But the way the show's lit, it just looks way more expensive, way more luxurious than you'd expect a TV show. So some of these other things that Adam's dropped in his question, things like stories about clone troopers and bounty hunters, you could do a show like that justice, even if it's just like a Marvel-style miniseries of maybe half dozen episodes.
Yeah,
really well produced, really well made, with top shelf writers, top shelf directors. Yeah, I'm in for that. I mean, 1313 is something we've touched on previously as well, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah, indeed. I'd say I'd love to see it. Whether or not we will, who knows? But I'd love to see those periods explored, because there is this, like I say, there's this huge space to play in.
Yeah.
And it just seems like a shame not to.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what would be cool would be like a Jawa robot wars gambling sort of situation film.
I would watch that. I would happily watch that.
Robot wars with Jawas.
Yeah.
With a big mafia connotations to
It's
it.
still Craig Charles, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, good.
Oh no. Let's get ready to rumble.
So can we a quick roundtable just to answer the heart of this question about whether or not we're going to see another trilogy. What do you
Probably.
You think probably, Paul? Rob?
Probably.
Yeah, I think it. I mean, realistically, yes, there will be, won't there? I mean, it's, you know, even if we want to see something new, I think they're still gonna.
Yeah.
They're gonna hit those kind of same beats.
I think we probably will as well. But I don't expect 9 to end on a cliffhanger. I expect these trilogies to be self-contained.
I think we're going to get finality on Luke as well.
Yeah, I think it'll wrap itself
Luke will
up.
be blue at the end. Prepared for that.
Dear, I'm not ready for that. But that's another question altogether, isn't it?
That's a story
Why?
for another time.
Children,
Why?
why aren't I ready for it?
He's an old man. He's entitled to some peace and quiet now. Let him go in the blue land.
Yeah, no, I might be. It depends what happens in The Last Jedi.
Him, Ben, and Yoda, they'd be like the Pentium guys.
It would be, that would be fitting for the way the movies have ended.
It's obvious, mate. It's happening, surely.
Yeah, maybe, but I think it's for Luke to I've mentioned this before on previous episodes. When a character of that level goes, it's usually in service of another area of the story. So to say self-sacrifice to save somebody. We saw it with Obi-Wan. We saw it with Anakin in The Return of the Jedi. We didn't see it with Yoda, but he had different story responsibilities.
Selfish little, but what?
Yeah. I think if we see that from Luke, that's what's going to happen. I can't imagine at the moment because I don't know what they're setting up in The Last Jedi. So I'm not quite ready.
Tell you,
no,
I was on set last week.
Oh, you spoiler. Stop sneaking on that set. You'll get in trouble.
I jump inside BB-8.
It's rolling around. rolling. Adam, thank you very much for your question, my friend. And yes, the other parts of your question are on hold for another set of show notes.
Fair enough.
Well, what would you like to see in an animated series?
Yes, I didn't do a thorough spell check, Sue.
I'd really like to see that.
You'd lied it. I'd lied you both to give me a brage. Paul, would you like to take? Would you like to take Katie's question?
Go on.
Is it your turn? It isn't. It's nice.
Yeah, regardless, we're all happy families holding hands. Okay, from Katie. Question time. I'm not going to know anything about this, am I? Anyway, with Rebels return weeks away now, which characters would you like to see make a guest cameo? We've already saw. We already saw. We already got Saw and Mothma coming back. So who else? I'd like to see Cassian and K2. Love the show and you guys as always. Paul rocks.
Stop adding bits. Stop adding stuff.
All right, okay. She said.
I bloody love Steve. She said.
Yeah.
Love is
who would you like to see appear in Star Wars Rebels final season? Oh, so you're good. This is it. This is done, is it?
Yeah, this is it.
Yep,
it's wrapping up.
Okay.
This
is rather successful for little franchises. Why would they cut the tape?
Great question, isn't it?
Dave's smart enough to know you quit when you're ahead, and he wanted the opportunity to wrap it up himself.
Yeah, the timeline's dovetailing into episode 4 as well.
It's getting close. Yeah, it's getting very close.
Where it's
I
really
should
converging.
watch this. I'd probably love it, wouldn't I?
I think you would. And if things go my way with the Patreon, I'm going to be going back to the very first episode and doing a podcast watch along from that episode all the way through. So
nice.
Fingers crossed that'll be a thing because I'm really looking forward to doing that.
I'll just watch quietly.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to you guys.
You can't do anything quietly.
I can't really comment on this, I'm afraid, my loves. So, who would you like to see appear in Star Wars Rebels final season?
I second K2SO and Cassian.
That would be awesome.
Yeah. Now add someone else.
With those actors. Oh, that would be fantastic. Get Alan Tudyk and Diego Luna on board to do those characters again.
Yeah, totally.
Yes, please.
What about, would Krennic fit in the equation?
That was what I was just thinking. I don't know if he would.
Haven't we heard that that's not a thing? I mean, it doesn't stop you from wanting it, but haven't we
in
heard
terms of in
that
terms of he's not happening?
Yeah, I think that's been said that he won't be, because that's something that we'd be looking out for, right?
Sure.
But
I wouldn't
I'm
be.
pretty sure it's been said publicly that there will be no Krennic.
Bodhi?
Who, sorry?
Bodhi.
Because he could be an Imperial pilot at that point.
Yeah.
True. Very true.
Why am I answering this more than you guys? And I don't.
Great question.
Well, I'm just waiting.
You've seen Rogue One.
I'm giving Rob
I've seen
room.
Rogue One. That's my latch. That's all I've got. Actually, but if you go beyond that, I'm screwed.
Yeah.
More Thrawn. Always good for more Thrawn.
Yeah, his story needs to wrap up here, doesn't it, really?
It has to. I mean, there's no other way, unless they send him into unknown regions.
Which might be the wrap up. That might be his end, won't it?
Be an interesting way of doing it, because obviously in Legends, that's where he came from. It'd be interesting if they send him back that way.
Oh, could there be a further return somewhere down the line?
There you go. Oh, my goodness me. I still maintain, if you ever do bring him into live action, Gary Sinise.
Yeah, that's bang on the money, that is. Mind you, the gentleman that plays him in the animated show, Mikkelsen, is it Lars Mikkelsen?
Yeah, that sounds right.
Really good. And I think most of these performers could transition nicely from voice performers into live action.
Yeah.
Given the
Jason
right
Isaacs would work, actually. I know obviously he's on Discovery, but Jason Isaacs would make a good Thrawn as well. Yeah,
he did the Inquisitor's voice, didn't he? So he's already part of the Star Wars family.
There you go.
I would like to see Galen Erso.
Okay.
And I think because of the connection, Mads Mikkelsen's connection to Lars Mikkelsen, that's possibly doable.
Yeah.
And that would be really cool to see.
Yes.
Because you could obviously play a different tone of him actually being him sort of pulling the party line for the Empire within Rebels. So it wouldn't be the reveal that he's actually set the trap. It would be that he's actually doing their bidding, and that could be really cool. Because that's kind of the way they view him in Rogue One, isn't it? The rebellion.
Yeah.
She's mentioned prominently in this message and things like that. So, yeah, I'd like to see Galen Erso. In fact, I'm expecting it. I demand it. Yeah, no, I do. I demand it. Mr. Filoni.
Good luck with that.
Make this a thing, please and thank you.
Yeah, well, that's fair enough.
So, Paul, you'd like Bodhi.
I'd have to start watching it first, and then I'd say, I'd have to see Bodhi in this.
Yeah. It would be kind of cool. It would probably be a little bit...
Bodhi stole a very big place in everybody's hearts very quickly, didn't he?
He was great.
Riz Ahmed's a very likeable chap.
Riz Ahmed is a lovely guy, and he really did nail that role as well, didn't he?
Yes.
He really knew what he was doing.
Yes.
It's so natural. In fact, I often sort of give shout outs to other podcasts, say, go listen to this. Scroobius Pip. There's a great, it's called Distraction Pieces, his podcast.
Yeah.
And the episode where he spoke to Riz Ahmed, this is before Rogue One came out. Really good. Really good. His podcast is usually quite long, so it's a couple of hour conversation with Riz Ahmed. I recommend it.
Cool.
Good stuff. So there you go. A nice few characters being pulled in there. Nothing too dramatic.
Chattering. Yeah.
I think, are we going to mention it later on? Let me just have a quick look. No, we're not.
No.
In the daily podcast today, I mentioned that there was a Topps trading card list that had Han Solo on it. And there were people speculating over on, I think it was the Dork Side of the Force, speculating that indicated that Han was going to appear in Rebels.
No.
It's not when you actually read the listing. I think the collection of cards was something like the Heroes the Hero's Journey, not the Hero's Journey, Hero's Trial or something.
Yeah.
And it was broken down in kind of the prequel trilogy and the OT, and Rebels was in the middle. And the last few were Star Wars Empire and Jedi related.
Yeah.
And it was the rescue of Han Solo.
Right. Gotcha.
So no indication that he's going to be in it. But I thought he might have come up, but no.
Yeah.
All right. Great stuff. Thank you, Katie. She was value for money in the Facebook Live this evening.
Ah, nice.
Teasing us with a pizza.
Oh
my. Right. Mark S. Mark, I wish I had more information on Mark and where he was from. And
no, it's cool. It's a cool mystery.
Yes, just Mark S.
Yeah.
Okay, Mark says, I found this PDF of Starlog number 2 and saw something very interesting. On pages 7 and 8 is a write-up about the then upcoming film Star Wars. It states that it is set in a distant future when Earth and its past have been entirely forgotten. Is this just an error by the magazine, or was this Lucas's original concept for the film? So I've taken the screen grab of the section that Mark's referring to, and it says 20th Century Fox is currently completing the filming of their latest science fiction blockbuster, Star Wars. Without any parts of the film even previewed yet, some critics have already heralded Star Wars as everything in science fiction you've always wanted to see on the screen but knew no one would ever put it there. That's hyperbolic. True, but hyperbolic. Star Wars is written and directed by George Lucas, the man responsible for THX 1138 and American Graffiti, my personal favourite film. Producer Gary Kurtz is working. I'm not going to read all of this stuff, but yeah, it does actually go on to say, I'm speed reading, trying to find the exact part about Earth. Does it say it in there? Can anyone see the bit that...
Yeah, I've got it. Star Wars I'll do it. Star Wars is about a galaxy-wide civil war set in the distant future where Earth and its past have been entirely forgotten. Sir Alec Guinness plays an old renegade who was a great general in the first Galactic Wars. Mark Hamill plays the film's starring role, Luke Starkiller, a young adventurer.
There it is.
That's quite far back then.
There it is.
Okay, this is back then. Okay.
Yeah, big time. Wow.
So when did the long time ago in a galaxy far, far away?
That's the question I'm interested in now.
That's fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah.
Star Wars is about galaxy-wide civil war set in a distant future when Earth... This must have been...
This is sprouting off the wheels.
Yeah, this must have been from really early drafts. And I know they started going to...
it says at the top they're completing filming.
It's currently completing filming, yeah.
So this is really interesting because this kind of contradicts itself on a timeline based on what we know about production and stuff. So
they had a presence at some early Comic-Cons, Star Wars. I'm trying to think. I think it was Steve Lippincott was a gentleman who was responsible for some of the marketing. I might have that wrong. I don't know if either of you guys are in a position to sort of Google that gentleman, Steve Lippincott. He was responsible for some of the marketing on Star Wars way back in the day. And they went to an early Comic-Con and just kind of set up just like a trestle table with some posters on. This sounds like it might have been taken from some of those early materials, like a little bit of blurb, maybe some Ralph McQuarrie concept art, and a little bit of blurb from an early draft of George's before, as he was always writing and always revising, even up to the fact that they changed the name Starkiller to Skywalker during filming, right? So he's always changing, always iterating and improving. Was it Charles Lippincott, I think his name is, sorry. I think it was. I think Mark actually said the name Luke Starkiller when they rescued the princess. And they had to change it. I think I'm right in saying that.
I've only watched the history of Star Wars about 400 times and I don't remember that fact. Anyway.
Someone will correct me, I think. Rob, was it Charles?
I'm going to watch it later now.
Yeah. Was it Charles Lippincott?
Oh,
Rob? I'm pretty sure that's him.
It wasn't Rob.
Here we go. Yeah, Charles Lippincott.
Yes, Charles.
The advertising publicity supervisor. He publicized the film at science fiction conventions in the winter of 1976. Although Star Wars was initially a tough sell on other fronts, Lippincott felt convention goers really got off on it. Oh my. They felt liked, they were being accepted into something, and they loved the idea that they were the first to know.
Yes. Yeah. So Charles, how can I forget that man's name? I was really struggling. So he was a presence at these conventions. So I think that some of this promo blurb would have come from the materials that he had then back in 76.
Okay.
And at that point, I think Star Wars was about 4 years old. It had been in some sort of state with George, even way back when he was making Graffiti and THX. It was there. It was in its sort of embryonic form way back when. So this must have been some early stuff that they'd put out at some of these conventions to try and generate some interest. But yeah, this Starlog's a really good find. What a strange little window into Star Wars history. That's a big difference, isn't it? A big change.
Sure.
Cool stuff. Luke Starkiller. Amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, right. Should we run off to our break? That's a lot of listener comms for this week, isn't it? That's great stuff.
Yes,
Thank
indeed.
you, everybody. Thank you, Mark, for sending that through the Starlog. That's really cool.
That's really wonderful.
Isn't it?
Yeah,
It's amazing.
I like that a lot.
I'll try and dig out the PDF that he sent and I'll fire it over to you, chaps.
Cool.
Okay, right. We're going to go to our quick break, and when we come back, we're going to get into some Star Wars news.
Really?
That's what we do here. If you'd like to support what we do here at Talk Star Wars, then head to patreon.com/Talk Star Wars and become a patron. Your support will help us as we expand our programming to include further shows, and in return, you'll get access to an exclusive VIP Facebook group, a monthly prize draw, weekly Facebook live sessions, priority release podcasts, an exclusive daily podcast, and a whole lot more. Head to patreon.com/Talk Star Wars today and become a TSW patron. And we're back. That was our promo spot for the Patreon campaign. You should jump over there now. Take advantage of everything we're putting out on that platform and become a part of our community. It is truly, truly wonderful. Okay, let's get into some Star Wars news. So we're going to kick off this week with Star Wars Rebels. We spoke about Rebels briefly in listener comms this evening.
Yes.
But this news came out and it was about Palpatine. I've just noticed. Emperor Palpatine.
He should be. I think.
I really need to spend more time spell checking these
How
notes.
many other cool Star Wars names could we screw with one letter track?
Emperor Palpatine. So there will be no Palpatine in Star Wars Rebels Season 4. This is from Dave Filoni.
This on top of finding out there's no Palpatine.
No Palpatine or Palpatine.
I can't get on with this. It's just one disappointment after another.
Well, this might make up for it. This comes in the week when Ian McDiarmid said he doesn't want anyone else to play Palpatine or indeed Palpatine. He wants to play the character himself. So there was, I don't know if you remember, a little while ago there was a rumor that Ian had been seen going into a recording studio to record audio with an LA-based director.
Right.
And a couple of days later, Warwick Davis went in to record his audio as Rook in Star Wars Rebels Season 4. And a lot of people putting two and two together and saying, we think McDiarmid is back playing Palpatine in Rebels. But apparently that's not the case. Filoni said there is no Emperor presence in Season 4. But Ian's still maintains quite vocal that if they were to revisit the character, he'd like to do it. That there's a lot of spin-off movies coming. He's aware of what's going on in Star Wars. And Rogue One was out recently, which was the ideal opportunity, but they didn't, of course, call on him. I did wonder whether or not this audio recording session might have had something to do with Battlefront. Because there is a Sidious presence, in Battlefront, isn't there? A Palpatine presence, but that's actually Sam Witwer, who is the next best thing. He actually voiced that.
A machine.
He is. He's wonderful. But I thought this was really interesting. I do like when you hear these guys sort of say how much it means to them and they'd like to come back. It's so refreshing when we're used to. Arguably nice. the most popular Star Wars character, Han Solo. You hear Harrison Ford talk about Star Wars almost with he doesn't really dig it, does he? He's almost disrespectful sometimes in the way he's offhanded with it, and I just like it when these guys sort of talk about it with even just a little bit of affection. It goes a long way. So I'd like to see McDiarmid. Would you welcome an Ian McDiarmid return to the role of Emperor?
Yes.
Yeah?
Love that dude.
Well, you are Palpacino, so obviously.
Well, there is that. Yeah, I'm a little biased.
I'm going to do you a new T-shirt that says Plappuccino.
Yeah, I might hold off on buying it till I've got a bigger order because I keep getting customs charges.
Yeah, that's a pain.
Yeah. It is a pain.
Bigger what?
Order.
What?
Oh.
All right, let's move on from Rebels. Obviously, Paul's still reading comics.
I gathered.
We're going to move on now from Star Wars Rebels to Last Jedi, and
Never heard of it.
It should be said that there is a potential for spoilers to be in some of this stuff because we're getting closer to the release, so these things are getting more and more refined now. These rumors, I think they're getting more and more robust. So a book. I'm not sure if it's been released, to be fair, but it's called Everything. I think it's called Everything You've Always Wanted to Know About Star Wars, or Star Wars: Everything You Always Wanted to Know. It's given away a whole bunch of stuff about the characters in The Last Jedi and about Ahch-To.
Okay.
And in this, it's very much for younger readers, and there's these little flash boxes on every page, these beautiful photographs and little flash boxes, little box outs that give you a little bit of detail on the movie and the characters. And it seems to place Luke's arrival at Ahch-To as about 2 years before The Last Jedi.
Okay.
So it's not like he's been on there. We know we're talking about a 6-year period, right, from Bloodline.
Yeah.
It's not like he's been on there all that time. So it looks like a 2-year period that he's been on Ahch-To with the caretakers and the Borgs. So does that seem to fit to you? Does that seem right? Is that what you'd imagined?
Kind of.
You'd imagined only 2 years?
Yeah, I would. I mean, I think it's Kylo Ren is the Fall is 6 years before.
Yes.
So he's been traveling in search of the first Jedi Temple, theoretically, for that time.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe he's been there for 2 years because he's found a sign that he's in the right place, but he can't move from the, he can't move forwards for whatever reason.
Do we get any indication in TFA based on the the final piece of the map, which is the pilgrimage, for want of a better term, how long he has been travelling that route?
No, but it makes sense for it to be about 4 years if you to add this up, and not to discount any other
6 years.
6 years.
It'd have to be 6 years, yeah.
But if he was on Ahch-To,
two. Oh, sorry, yeah,
so
the 4
year,
year,
the
4 year
4
journey
years,
to get there, yeah.
4 year pilgrimage.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of discounting him being involved in anything else, and we don't know what significance the Church of the Force are going to have, what part they're going to play in Luke's story. But it's also, Rob, some of the stuff we've spoken about recently about Luke possibly finding something that he needs a second Force sensitive to gain access to, maybe a temple, a bit like we saw in Rebels. That doesn't seem to be the case because some of the language in this book seems to suggest that Luke's presence on Ahch-To is a quiet exile as he ruminates over some of the mistakes that have been made. Okay. So it doesn't sound to me like he's there for any major
Is he punishing
reason.
himself?
Sounds like it. And that's what that brings me back to the vow. Something similar to what Yoda and Obi-Wan did.
Yeah.
Whether they're going to label that the Barish vow or not in the film, I don't know. It's not really all that important. It's more about it being the same kind of motivation. The same thing motivated Yoda as is motivating Luke now. And certainly Obi-Wan, because they're almost an analogue at this point, aren't they? Luke and Ben, having lost, or Luke and Obi-Wan, for the sake of confusion, Luke and Obi-Wan and Ben Solo and Anakin Skywalker, they're almost walking that same path. So the other thing in this book is that Rey goes to Ahch-To to recruit Luke to help the Resistance, and it's less about her going there to train with him.
Right.
Now,
that's kind of cool.
Do you find that surprising?
No, not entirely. Now you bring it up. It's mildly obvious. She has gone there basically to say, I think, hey, this is yours. Come back and help, rather than by the way, I'd like to learn the ways of the Force that I don't actually know much about.
I think a lot of us, I certainly jumped to the conclusion that she'd gone there to train, the way Luke went to Dagobah to train with Yoda. That was my read on it. But
she hasn't got that in-depth knowledge yet.
No, and they hadn't.
She doesn't really know what the Jedi are to a great degree still.
That's true, and they haven't done anything to set up her going there to train, have they? She's had a little bit of experience with the Force, a little bit of experience with the lightsaber, but I don't think there was ever anything to suggest, well, I'm going to go there now and learn to develop this.
All she's had is a conflict with someone that she thinks is also interested in the Force, but the other side of it.
Yep.
And a conversation with a pirate who said it's all true.
We said,
that's all she's really had. She's very little exposure, in all honesty.
Yeah,
but that's why I find it less compelling that she's able to wield it so capably. That's part of the argument, really, is that she's only had one bloke tell her, "Oh yeah, no, it's all true that," and then she's suddenly gone, "All right, cool. I guess I can manipulate minds now." But, okay.
Yeah. I think that...
wasn't that a positive reaction from a defense mechanism?
No, but there's no build up to that. It's just, she just does it. She doesn't... I would have been more kind of on board with it if she'd kind of said it initially as a kind of, lashing out demand, like, let me go. You will, you must let me go, and all that sort of stuff. And then he sort of, he almost starts to react to it without kind of.
What would have happened though?
Hang on a minute.
You know what would have happened if that had been the case? We'd have said, well, she's coming at it from the dark side. See, I don't know whether or not there was.
Oh, okay.
Do you know what I mean? Because I can just imagine us doing this episode if that was the case, and we'd be saying, well, look, Rey came at that very much from the dark side. That was fear motivating that command, or that was anger motivating that command. And what we saw in the actual final edit was what we would have been demanding if things had been done differently. We would have been saying, no, she should have calmed herself and come at it from the light side. She should have tried to focus, stay calm. And yeah, she was in a desperate situation, but I see this as being what we'd be demanding if they'd made the different choices. That no, she should have come at it from the light side, and coming at it from fear and anger would have been the dark side. So we've been questioning her motivations. So maybe they tried it.
For me, the problem is that she comes at it from no side. She just suddenly comes at it, and it's like there's no build up. There's no nothing. It's just it's not very. I don't think it's very well thought out.
No, and I'm just trying to be obviously moderating a podcast, trying to be. Play devil's advocate a little bit, and of course I have a very forgiving nature when it comes to Star Wars anyway. I think that there is evidence within what we first see of Rey to suggest that she has a propensity for Force use, the flying of the Falcon, what she does every day in the wreckage of those Star Destroyers, climbing around, when she leaps to that rope and things like that. We started to sort of consider maybe she was using the Force in those areas of her life, much like Luke, Bullseye and Womp Rats flying for Beggar's Canyon, and Anakin flying the pods. There's elements of all of these little characters that grow up on desert worlds using the Force to do things unwittingly. So you can kind of build that into your defense, your case for the defense of Rey, as she's just starting to use skills that she's been calling on all along in her everyday life. But
I don't know. I just think so. That feels like a bit of a.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not discounting your position at all, Rob. I'm just trying to put the other side.
No. I understand. And to be fair, I'm not kind of. It's not a knock on Rey the character so much as the writing of Rey the character. Mm-hmm. But I suppose indirectly they're the same thing. But
yeah, I do say the alternative there we would have had bigger issues with, I'm sure, had that been the case, if she'd come at it.
Would have been speculating more interestedly about what it might mean.
Yeah, about Rey and who she is and where she's going. Yeah,
I think it makes it that would make for quite an interesting discussion.
It would be an interesting conversation between her and Luke if she said, like, I unlocked this ability. All I needed to do was get the and he would say, whoa, no, I know where that takes you.
Whoa,
dial it down, love. Dial it down. Let's move on to Kylo Ren. So I can't remember where this came from. Sorry, Paul.
Interesting, actually. Sorry.
No,
I'm rewinding a bit. I'm just thinking about Luke's pilgrimage again. I know I use the word pilgrimage, but loosely. We don't know who he's met along the way.
True.
The very cool ideal, all hope is lost at the end of, nearing the end of film 9, and Luke's like, don't worry, I made a lot of friends. 10 trillion starships turn up sort of to defend them in battle and so on. It's just this idea of this enormous sort of backup situation coming because of Luke's travels along the way to Ahch-To was always like, I knew this was coming. I got some recruits or something like that. I don't know why this thing just popped into my head.
Yeah, I don't know how I would feel about that. Especially with the film being called The Last Jedi, it does sound...
I never said anything about Jedi.
No, that's true. That's true. And that would fit with sort of the Lando and Maz and the pirate fleet and things like that.
His best friend's a pirate, so...
Yeah.
Was.
No, that's true, yeah. I like the idea that
He's
of Luke's...
He's an ex-pirate. Sorry, that's supposed to be parrot.
Yeah, you haven't got your other... Monty Python spouting friend here this evening. Your jokes will be lost on us. All right, let's move on to Kylo Ren. So I can't remember where this came from, but Kylo Ren may smash his mask before Snoke to show he no longer needs to hide behind that Kylo Ren identity. This might explain what that frame is in the first trailer, with the Kylo Ren mask just destroyed. It would seem that Ben Solo has given himself over to the Kylo Ren identity and no longer needs to project that persona through those adornments, and so he destroys it in front of Snoke and stands before him with that scarred face. Does this sound incredibly cool or not?
Sounds pretty cool to me.
I prefer he did it
really
in
like
front of is it Dax or someone like that?
Hux.
Hux.
Oh, General Hux, yeah.
I prefer he did it.
That's
I
a
don't
good
need
point.
this. I stand in front of you now. This is what take what you see, sort of thing.
Well, that's
we've had that impression that he's been doing it from a point of view of standing, and if he feels like I don't need to do this anymore, I'll happily just kick this thing to pieces in front of you. What are you going to do about it? And, I'm running the show. That'd be kind of cool too.
That would be cool.
Yeah, it would be, especially when
in fact, I like that better.
It's riffing on that moment that might that I'm not sure you can do that micro moment between Hux and Ben Solo when they have an audience with Snoke and Kylo Ren's got the mask off and he's talking
and
to
he
Snoke.
Kind of looks down, doesn't he?
He does. He looks really shy, doesn't he? And that's the moment I started having that idea that Ben Solo's this kid trying to be this beast, and
Commander.
When you can see his handsome little face and his curly little locks, it loses some of the impact. That scary mask is way more powerful than Ben, but now Ben's sporting this scar, all bets are off. So that would work really well, wouldn't it?
And look at his last deed. So especially
if that's this defiant sort of show of power in front of Hux, almost like a contest between the two for the favour. Snoke's
it'd be interesting
favour,
to see if he actually isn't even him that does it.
Yeah, I mean, what if Snoke did it, crushed it with the Force? You no longer need this.
Or you use it as a crutch.
Yeah. Oh my.
I think it happens. I think it happens very late in the film, and I think Leia does it.
Well, that's a bold one. Wow. That would work though. I'd like that.
Well, she asks Chewie too.
Yeah. We're all over the map there with that one, aren't we? Oh, I like it. I think it's really good. I love the point you made about Hux. That's really good.
The whole coming of age thing's important for him.
Yeah. It kind of makes him a little bit more dangerous as well, doesn't it? Because I thought he was dangerous enough when he's pursuing somebody else's ideals, but if they suddenly become his, I think that makes him even more dangerous. Cool stuff. Can't remember where that's from, so I haven't put a link in.
I read a couple of articles last week. People claiming that Snoke might just be a complete smokescreen for the entire story. And it does give a little bit of leverage to the whole "your Snoke theory sucks" sort of thing. And I quite like that ideal as well. The idea that Snoke maybe isn't quite who he thinks he is, or he's quite surprised what happens to Kylo, and I'm not entirely sure from a power point of view what might happen there. If things might flip inadvertently and so on. But I like the idea of maybe we're so blinded by Snoke's half thing we've been talking about, waiting for this film to come along. If he accidentally becomes a little more insignificant because, Kylo's the man sort of thing. So
I like that idea.
I'm very attracted to that.
I like that idea.
Doesn't dissolve any redemption that may come later, because I still think that might happen.
Well, destroying or removing Snoke could be part of that path to redemption. I mean, it would be a riff on the Vader Palpatine or Palpatine dynamic, where one needs to destroy the other. And if Kylo suddenly thinks, I know I've already learned as much as I'm going to learn from Snoke, and decides to remove him and ascend to absolute power himself, that could be very interesting. It would be kind of him succeeding where Vader failed. Vader could never quite get out from underneath Palpatine's thumb, because he could never quite get out of the guy's shadow, until obviously Luke's life was at risk. But it'd be nice to see Ben Solo, or the Kylo Ren character, rise up and succeed in an area that Vader failed in. That could be quite interesting. All right, we have a new character and a new actor to discuss. British actress Hermione Caulfield is playing A-Wing leader Tali Lintra in The Last Jedi. Hermione was in Mission Impossible Rogue Nation, along with Mr. Holmes and the recent King Arthur movie by Guy Ritchie.
Okay.
She plays Tali Lintra, and Ryan himself named her this week publicly on Twitter as being this character. Now, this seems to we'll go straight on to the next bullet point as well, because this is all rolled into one. This may the reveal of this character may also reveal the opening for The Last Jedi. And now I know we're covered by the spoiler warning we gave earlier, so I don't feel too bad talking about this. But you remember when we said, well, this film takes off straight after the last film ends.
Yeah.
There's no gap. So, and we'd seen Ryan reshoot that scene between Luke and Rey, suggesting that the film might open with Luke and Rey on Ahch-To. And we were mulling it over. How does that work? The opening crawl, then what? You pan down to the planet, zoom in, or whatever.
Yeah.
Now it seems like the opening moments of The Last Jedi will be opening crawl, pan down through a starfield to the First Order assault on Dakar.
Yeah.
They're attacking the Resistance base after the destruction of Starkiller. Mm-hmm. And we're going to see the battle that we never saw at the end of Star Wars, when the rebels were chased off of Yavin and ended up going to Hoth. So you've got Poe's X-Wing squadron facing TIE fighters, facing two Dreadnought Star Destroyers that come into the Dakar system. That's that image we saw. Do you remember? We thought it was the prow of a giant ship, but it's actually it's actually an asteroid belt going around the planet of Dakar that we saw in The Force Awakens.
I remember that.
So you got two Dreadnought Star Destroyers attacking along with ancillary Imperial ships, and Poe's X-Wing fighter squadron is being supported by a fleet of A-Wings, and Tali Lintra is played by Hermione Caulfield, is the A-Wing leader that's laying down some support for Poe. So I don't expect her to be in the film much beyond that point, to be perfectly honest, but it looks like this film is going to open much like the waterfall shot in the Revenge of the Sith, going to open with a space battle, I think.
Yeah.
How does that sit with you guys, opening a Star Wars movie like that?
Bring it on.
Yeah, sounds pretty awesome.
Sounds good, right?
Yeah.
So they beat the Bushes, chase the resistance out of Dakar, and then they're on the run. This, I think, will still have Finn incapacitated. He'll be in that glass canister as he's taken out of the base, put on a ship like Home One or something, and then we got the fleet hauling ass across the galaxy trying to find a new base, which is when they decide to go to Crate.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds pretty cool to me. So this young lady's going to be one of the newest faces in Star Wars, even though I don't think it'll be for very long.
I don't know if I was going to say how long till we lose her.
Yeah, probably immediately, I would think. Very interesting stuff, though. Okay, right. Han Solo stuff. Got some really juicy bits in Han Solo this week. So Han Solo, a Star Wars story. Spoilers again. So Thandie Newton, it was revealed this week on Ron Howard's Twitter feed. That's a beautiful picture you just put in there, Paul, of
nice.
Carrie
really
Fisher
nice,
and Oscar Isaac. They become very, very close during the filming, apparently. Really lovely picture. Yes, Ron Howard revealed on his Twitter feed this week that Thandie Newton had returned to Han Solo for key new scenes. Did you see this tweet?
Yes.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So did you see in the image that Ron had his arm around Thandie Newton and was covering,
I saw that one.
Covering a badge on a jacket?
Oh, no.
Well,
I didn't see the cover.
Yeah, it's a shoulder patch on a jacket and Ron's hands just over it. And you could just make out the top of the patch and it looks like the Imperial cog. So it led to a lot of bloggers speculating that she may be playing an Imperial character, and they've even speculated that she may be playing Ray Sloane. Ray Sloane's...
She'd be a bit... Ray Sloane would be a bit old, wouldn't she, by that point?
Ray Sloane's 41 years BBY.
41 years BBY. As in born?
She was 41 years old at the Battle of Yavin.
Oh, sorry, I'm with you. Right.
Yeah, so it would put Thandie Newton in about the right sort of frame. Yeah, maybe a couple of years older than she would be, but Thandie Newton can pass as being younger than she actually is. I think she's incredibly beautiful woman. So yeah, she could be playing Ray Sloane. I think it's more than likely that this is actually more like a crew jacket, though, rather than a part of her wardrobe.
Because it might have the name of the film on it. Exactly
my point. That's what I think that Ron's covering up, is that this is a crew jacket, and it either has another title treatment, like we've seen Solo with just the L had been replaced by the DL-44 on its end, or Han Solo, just simple text. I think this might be another title treatment, and I suspect that the crew members in different departments get different T-shirts, different logo designs and things like that, just so you can distinguish who they are.
Do you know when they get T-shirts made, like I survived the tornadoes on Jurassic Park and all those kind of things?
Yeah.
I think it simply says, I wasn't fired from the salute.
Well, that would be in bad taste, wouldn't it? I survived Kathleen Kennedy. Yeah.
I got to come back. Beat that.
All I got was this lousy jacket.
This lousy jacket.
Yeah. No, I think that's what that is. I think, Rob, you're on the money there. I think it's...
he actually looks fairly casual.
Crew jacket.
Holding her as well, to be honest. Is that a purposeful cover? It probably is, actually. But
yeah.
You do look quite casual in the shot.
I think that I spoke about this the other day on the Talk Star Wars Daily podcast and said that if he was covering up that shoulder patch because it's a crew jacket and he's covering up another logo treatment to save people speculating, inadvertently has led to way bigger speculation in people drawing the conclusion that she's playing Ray Sloane. So he couldn't have possibly anticipated that that's where it would go. But we're all missing the most important thing about the reveal, which is the key new scenes. She'd already wrapped and she'd been brought back to film key new scenes. So it's like the Kasdans or maybe even Ron are adding elements now. So are they expanding the story out enough?
There's always rewrites, mate.
Lord and Miller might drop off. the credits. If there's more original material in there than when Lord and Miller left the project.
I think they were dropped off the credits the day after they left the set.
Well, no, they're not legally allowed to be if they.
Are they
if
really?
They use,
Okay.
I think it's like if they use more than a certain percentage
70,
of their
I think.
stuff. 70.
And apparently they were at that point. They were supposed to be 70 to 90% through. Principal photography as well, right?
Yeah.
So how long has Ron Howard been on set?
A couple of months
since July, is it?
Yeah.
So there's a lot going on then.
3 months and they're still shooting, and
You have to wonder how much was kept.
yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah, it's a good question.
It's almost like they've refilmed it.
Now it could be. I mean, there are probably people out there right now screaming at their iPhones and their iPods saying these pickup things happen all the time. Now it could just be that yes,
No, they do. They do.
yeah. So it could be that Thandie Newton was already scheduled to do pickups at this time. They've brought her and they thought, look, while she's here, let's just redo this or let's redo that.
Yeah.
But key new scenes is interesting choice of language. To me,
Where did the language come from?
His tweet.
Interest? His tweet.
His tweet. It was something like the wonderful Thandie Newton's return for key new scenes on the untitled Han Solo movie before she jets back off to Westworld.
Right. Fair enough.
So key new scenes is really interesting choice of terminology. It's not like she's rocked up for the schedule. You know, we scheduled this ages ago. She's back for pickups. This is why you bring in a Ron Howard. This is why you bring in a seasoned filmmaker, because principal photography has rolled directly into post and pickups. He's dealing with many stages of filmmaking right now.
Yeah.
And if there's still writing going on, if the Kasdans are still producing key new scenes for Ron to slip into this edit, then this is a very interesting proposition. And I think that the Lord and Miller names will most likely disappear from this production at this point. Looking at how long he's been shooting now, for 3 months or so.
Sure.
It's a lot of stuff being caught.
For sure.
And the image in the show notes as well, I should have put an image of the tweet in there, but I chose this one instead. This came out yesterday, I believe. This is Ron on a boosted board, bombing around, I believe it's Pinewood, between sets, which I'm a big fan of boosted boards. And I think this is really cool. I know Ron's a big fan of sort of electric powered transportation and things like that. But it's the booties he's wearing. He's wearing these little socks over his trainers,
right,
to prevent damaging, and this was all revealed in his tweet, the floors on the set of the Millennium Falcon. So he's actually bombing around between one place and the Millennium Falcon set.
Oh, okay.
So they're actually there filming still on that ship. It did make me smile that he's wearing the booties to protect the floors on the most notorious piece of junk in cinema history, right? And there's some irony there, I think.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of cool. He's awesome, isn't he, this guy? I really dig him.
Yeah, I think he's good. I think he's turned out certainly to be a good choice for the piece. Yeah,
well, he's spun this now from a project that was pretty much in a nosedive, like turmoil after the boys were fired.
In terms of public perception, you mean? In
terms of the perception from fandom, yeah. He's managed to turn it around in this sort of charm assault on us.
Mm-hmm.
He's really managed to reframe it.
I don't want to sound patronising, condescending, I'm not sure the word I'm looking for, but he's managed to beautifully tune the idea that Richie Cunningham can be almost a real professional person, and you can still be in the mix and still be completely admired and respected in every way. So he's taken that cool boy image and he's carried it professionally as well.
Yeah,
I think you'd be hard pressed to find anyone that did not like working with him, sort of thing. And he's always been, he's still Richie Cunningham. So what? Deal with it, because he's also, an utter professional and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So the guy just has. He cuts the mustard.
Something.
It's as simple as that. Yeah.
Yeah, he just has
really
something.
Does. He has something, and only few of us, fortunately, have got it.
A few of us. Yeah, I know a lot of people will jump up and down on me when I say this, but I want to see Ron come back for Star Wars movies, and I mean that people will jump up and down on me because they're going to say, well, he hasn't proven himself yet. We haven't seen the film. We don't know if it's going to be any good. George made films that were incredible, and he also made films that weren't incredible in Star Wars. So you can have a great filmmaker that's perfectly suited for it, that doesn't turn out a perfect Star Wars movie. I just like this guy inside my Star Wars. I like him to be a part of that world because I just enjoy his interaction with everybody, and I love the way he treats his stars. All these lovely shots he's taken as they wrap. That is fantastic. We haven't seen that before. It's just such a good use of the connection between the film and the people that are going to enjoy. I'm already enjoying the film, and not 1 second of it has rolled for me yet.
Yeah.
I'm already enjoying the experience of it. That's the kind of thing I want in the future of Star Wars.
He's beautifully literally swiped all of the old broken crockery off the table as well, as far as this production is concerned.
Yeah, for sure.
He's changed the game. He's changed the game, hasn't he? He's changed
and
the
I don't think
temperature
you're
in the
going to
room.
see. I think you're going to see Lucasfilm want more of this. So I think you might see this guy around a little longer in
I hope so.
A sequence or two. Let's just say that.
Yeah, I hope so. Okay, staying with Han Solo, we've got some. This is from MakingStarWars.net. So we've got some planets, some Han Solo worlds.
Well, we've heard of a couple of these.
Yeah, some of them are well and truly in sort of Star Wars canon. So Corellia. So this is from Jason over at Making Star Wars, posted this today. So he thinks the Han Solo speeder stuff is likely on Corellia, and this will be the young version of Han. So it might be, if I'm right, and I've been saying this for a while, that the film will cold open with a young Han.
Yeah.
And then we'll have the title treatment like we did in Rogue One, and then we'll catch up to contemporary Han within this story. And so, yeah, we might only see Corellia in the cold open of the movie, and young Han doing his American Graffiti bit in the floating hot rods. But that's pretty cool, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Second planet on offer is Kessel. So Jason is suggesting that Kessel would be the world where Han Solo likely frees the Wookiees, and they've heard that there's a variety of Wookiees besides Chewbacca showing up in the film.
That fits with how they did it in Legends as well, I think, because I believe he freed Chewbacca from Kessel as well.
Yes. Some of the life debt stuff that I'm hearing now, and I'm not sure if this is from Chuck Wendig's books or not, but some of it is about Chewbacca vowing to get Han home safely. And he doesn't.
That sounds familiar.
He doesn't succeed.
I've read Life Debt's one of the ones I've read. That does sound familiar.
Yeah, so that's a nice. I like that. Like, just you freed my people. I'm going to get you home safely.
Yeah.
So they go on to sort of talk about some of the other elements relating to Kessel there, C-3PO and what have you. And then we're moving on to another planet, which is also familiar to Star Wars. It's not one I'm familiar with, I'm afraid, but it's Iridium. Iridium has shown up in Star Wars before. The rumours about this world are that it is mountainous and dangerous. The Expanded Universe lore had pirates that used power gems to disable the shields of ships so they could raid them. That sounds cool. We do not know if there's a connection between the Expanded Universe lore or if they just happen to share the name. I think it's more likely the latter feels right to me. Do you think they would just recycle, like using Thrawn but not having his origin be the same? Using Iridium, it's just a planet that we may be familiar with, but they're going to change some of the lore surrounding it. But if this thing is true about the EU, that there are pirates there, that would certainly make sense, right? That's the circles they move in.
Yeah, for sure.
Sounds cool.
Yes.
Then we have Savareen, and that Savareen is also a planet that's shown up in Star Wars lore. It's mostly mentioned for its brandy.
Really?
Yeah, maybe brandy is interesting to smugglers during Imperial rule. Well, that would make sense, wouldn't it? Smugglers and hot rods and prohibition and all that kind of stuff. It all makes sense.
Smugglers and rum.
Yeah, indeed.
Pirates and rum, should I say?
Yeah, well, smugglers as well.
Yeah.
And then we have Vandor. Now, this is Jason. Well, I'll read it to you. This is Jason from Making Star Wars saying Vandor was a rocky system of planets in the Expanded Universe in the system, same system as Coruscant. And he notes that there's a planet in Han Solo at Star's End. I think I had that book called Fondor. Fondor's already shown up in Battlefront 2. And
That's the one that's made of melted cheese, right?
Yeah, it is, yeah. It sits in a big hot silver bowl, right?
Yeah, that's the one.
It's made Jason wonder if he's misheard the pronunciation of this word. And maybe this is Fondor, and it's when he says to do with the accents, regional accents, it's probably a British person. Maybe he's misunderstood and it's Fondor, not Vandor. But, some of these planets, when they're near each other, they have similar names, don't they, in the Star Wars galaxy? So it could be something as simple as that. But they sound pretty cool, right?
Yeah. I think it's a nice broad range of stuff.
I'm interested in Submarine.
Because of the brandy?
The whole pirate thing's cool.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah. I hope we get some of that.
That's the approach they need to take with this, is, that sort of Pirates of the Caribbean drama, but with a bit of light kind of.
That's who Han was when we first met him. It was the guy with the gloves that was kind of
cocky,
droll. Yeah, droll and cocky, and it's like, okay, kid, whatever,
I mean, he is really cocky when you think that this guy's got a bounty on his head, and he's on the guy that's put the bounty on his head. Han's there, right under his nose, in Mos Eisley, right there, isn't he?
Yeah,
he's bold. I don't know whether that's hubris or whether he is just a brave mofo. All right, we're going to move on to finish off now. This is it. We're going to wrap up with this tonight. It's Star Wars Episode 9. John Boyega commented on J.J. Abrams' return to Star Wars with Star Wars Episode 9. He commented in a way that only John Boyega could, which is charming, that he thinks JJ returned purely because he missed him. Now, I think this is possibly a reveal too far, because it kind of suggests that the two are going to work together on Episode 9, meaning that Finn survives The Last Jedi. Do you think he meant to let that out? I mean, there's little chance that he was going to go anyway, right? But it's do you think he's revealed a little bit too much?
Possibly. I don't know. I don't think it matters that much.
No, it doesn't matter, because we know he's going to survive anyway.
The chances are, right, that he probably is, but
you're not going to be close to death at the end of the first one to die in the second one.
Yeah, no, that's
in the modern world as well.
That's a bit of a boomerang.
I can't imagine them getting to the point where he's one day from retirement and then take him down.
Yeah,
seems like they wouldn't do that nowadays.
But, when I was typing this onto the show notes, I was thinking Steve's going to have a field day with this, because he's really going to get the ump that he knows that Finn survives through. And then he didn't even turn up to have his day. But it's, I thought, I think that might be a reveal too far for some people, although I never imagined that
that's it. I
anything
think
would happen to Finn.
Most people aren't. I think the people who aren't surprised are the ones who had already kind of accepted that as just a thing that was going to happen.
Yeah.
I think it's very reasonable to surmise that he makes it through in some form.
What he should have said was JJ missed Harrison.
Yeah.
That would have thrown the cat in the...
That would have been amazing.
That would have done it, wouldn't it? Yeah.
That would have been pretty funny.
Okay. Right, I think that's us done for this week. We're coming in at about 2 hours. Look at that. Super efficient.
That's out.
Guys, have you got anything you want to say before we wrap up this week?
I don't think so, sir.
We covered quite a lot of stuff this evening, haven't we?
Broad spectrum of
broad
discussion.
He beat me to it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's been great stuff. So thank you to everyone that's emailed in or tweeted in questions to us this week. Lots of really enjoyable bits and pieces in there.
Always thought-provoking. Thank you all.
Yes.
Always. And don't forget, if you have sent stuff in and we haven't used it this week, I already have rather full show notes for next week. So keep them coming in, though. We will always stack them up, and nothing will get wasted, I promise you. All right. Thank you very much for listening to Talk Star Wars again this week. You can support us and become a member of the Talk Star Wars community by heading over to Patreon at patreon.com/Talk Star Wars and becoming a patron. For a small amount each month, a little donation, you can help underwrite what we're doing right now. and help us expand our programming going out into the future. And in return, you'll get a whole bunch of stuff like exclusive programming, priority release podcasts, a group membership, a monthly draw. I mean, that Facebook group membership on its own is worth the price of admission.
Oh, it's good fun in there.
Wonderful people in there. Star Wars fans from all over the world. It really is like a global community of Star Wars fans in there. A lot of fun. So yeah, check that out. Patreon.com/Talk Star Wars. We'd love to get you in there. We'd love to talk Star Wars with you and give you free stuff every month. Not intended as a factual statement. Not everyone gets something. I'll slow walk that back. All right. Don't forget to head over to iTunes and leave us a 5-star review. Take advantage of our Ron Burgundy guarantee. So whatever you write in there, as long as it's clean, we will read it. So if you want to promote something like a blog or a podcast, that's the place to do it. You can email us your questions and comments to talkstarwarsinfo@gmail.com. That's talkstarsinfo@gmail.com. Or you can reach out to us on one of our many social channels, such as Twitter, Facebook, YouTube is a good place these days, Instagram, and many more. With that said, gentlemen, where can people find you between episodes?
You will find me at moviescorenews.com, and you'll find me on the Twitterverse and the Facebookverse at Moviescore News.
Oh, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at RobWadeVision, and you can find everything I do that's not Talk Star Wars related at emotionally14.com.
Splendid. You can find Steve, the naked one, at Wild About Nature on Twitter and
Nude one.
Wild About Nature on YouTube as well. His actual Twitter address is at Stephen_Ware, isn't it? But if you search Wild About Nature, he's the first thing that pops up.
Sickly Sausage.
Sickly Sausage. At
please, can we set that up?
Hashtag Sickly Sausage. You can find everything I do at talkstarwars.co.uk, and I'm on Twitter at talkstarwars, and I'm very, very active in that Patreon feed at the moment, putting out a daily podcast. Head over to StarWarsCommonwealth.com, which I renewed for 3 years yesterday, so we're getting bold. You'll find all of our partner shows there. So Tumbling Saber, Generation X-Wing, Rogue Squadron podcast, the Skyhoppers podcast, the Nerd Room, and the wonderful San Diego Sabers are all there. StarWarsCommonwealth.com. Each of their shows is worth your time. They are churning out first-class Star Wars content. Every show's different. That's it. There's also show notes linked in the description to this episode. So if you want to download those, you'll find some humorous spelling mistakes and some links to some useful bits and pieces that you might enjoy, t-shirt stores, and some of our affiliate programs. All right, that's it for this week. We'll see you guys next week. Have a good one.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Talk Star Wars is a proud member of the Star Wars Commonwealth Podcast Network. Find us at StarWarsCommonwealth.com alongside
the Tumbling Saber Podcast,
the Generation X-Wing Podcast,
Rogue Squadron Podcast,
the Skyhoppers Podcast,
the TSW Roundtable,
the Nerd Room Podcast,
and San Diego Sabres Radio Podcast.
Head to StarWarsCommonwealth.com and take your first steps into a larger world.
It's
a wrap. It's a wrap.